Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News, and I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi, and these are today's headlines from the past. On this day, the 24th of November in 1434, the River Thames froze over, and it would be so exactly 281 years later when it froze again on this day, hard enough for a frost fair to be held on the ice. Truly, this would be, or well, this would have been a festive and joyous occasion for the residents of what is now part of London. Moving forward, on this day in 1859, Darwin's controversial book, The Origin of Species, was published, which today has been recognized as one of the foremost guides on the history of the evolution of mankind. Therefore, Charles Darwin and his book, The Origin of Species, have truly secured their position in the pantheon of history. Moving forward, on this day in 1951, Austin and Morris Motors agreed to merge. The two companies have been accredited as the creators of some of the most iconic cars in the history of the 20th century. So, truly, the merger of Austin and Morris Motors was a significant date in the history of British corporations. Moving forward, on this day in 1963, the 24th of November 1963, Lee Harvey Oswald was shot dead in an underground car park by Jack Ruby, also known as Jack Rubenstein, which was his actual name. After he had been charged, that would be to say Lee Harvey Oswald, had been charged with the assassination of President JFK and was about to be transported to the county jail when the owner of a club, Jack Rubenstein, appeared out of the darkness with a gun and shot Lee Harvey Oswald, adding another element of mystery to the assassination of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And finally, in 1989, the Czechoslovak party leadership, that is to say, the Communist Party leadership, resigned and Soviet withdrawal took place, marking an end to the Communist Party's leadership in the former Czechoslovak Socialist Republic. That would occur on this day in 1989, the 24th of November 1989, a significant moment in the end or in the years leading up to the end of the Cold War. And on that note, we conclude today's headlines of the day. And now we move on to the next segment of our show where we recount the famous births and deaths of famous figures from the 19th and 20th centuries and sometimes earlier. Born on this day, the 24th of November 1784, was Zachary Taylor, the 12th President of the United States, who was a popular military figure with heroic victories against Santa Anna and his Mexican army before taking office in 1848. He died in office 2 years later because of his obsessive smoking addiction. And alongside him, on this day, 68, Scott Joplin, pianist and composer who played his ragtime in certain questionable establishments of Chicago and St. Louis, was born on this day. He composed the first ragtime opera, A Guest of Honor, but it was mainly due to Joshua Rifkin in the mid 70s that his work, that is to say Scott Joplin's work, was revived and revalued. Therefore, Scott Joplin's birth was a significant birth in the history of contemporary American music. And unfortunately, on this day in 1848, Lord Melbourne, twice the British Prime Minister, would pass away on this day. And alongside him, on this day in 1929, Georges Clemenceau, twice French Prime Minister, significantly so, well, specifically so once in the time of the First World War, would pass away on this day. And on that unfortunate note, we conclude today's headlines of the day. You are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News, and I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi, and these were today's headlines as history first heard them. Good night.